Hello friends, I am Sunil Desai and I welcome you to Galaxy Online Learning. Okay, today we are going to study the first chapter of Geography, 10th CBSE. Okay, the name of the chapter is Resource and Development. Okay, now you must have already been studying resources right from each standard. So, what are resources? What, what are the things which you call as resource? So, what is a resource? Everything available in the environment which satisfy human needs, provided, and this is very important, provided it is technologically accessible, economically feasible, and culturally acceptable. Okay, so these points are very important. Everything available in the environment which satisfy human needs, that's a resource. Provided what? It should be technologically accessible. Means if there is no technology to convert that particular product into resource, it's of no use. Secondly, it should be economically feasible. That means the amount of money you're going to spend in converting that product into a resource so that it should be useful to human being should be economically feasible. And third is that it should be culturally acceptable. Different cultures, different things are accepted. So that thing should be accepted in your culture. So this is a very important definition of resource, and you should know it. You should first understand it, the meaning of it, and then by heart it, because many a times this is the first question which comes in your exams. Okay. Now, there's you see a triangle. That triangle is the that shows this triangle shows you the relationship, interdependent relationship between nature, technology, and institutions. Okay, so human being interacts with nature through technology and create institutions to accelerate its economic development. That has been shown in this triangle. Okay, so human being itself is a resource. You know it very well. Okay, these human beings, what they do, they transform material available in our environment into resources. The material which is available in the environment, it is transferred by human being into resources and they use them. These resources can be classified on the different ways. They are classified in the following ways. On different ways you can classify on the basis of origin, whether they have been taken from, this resource has been you have got it from a living source or a non-living source. So from where it is originating. So on the basis of origin, a resource is divided into biotic and abiotic. Biotic resources are resources which are originating from living things like plants, animals, flora and fauna for that way, the livestock, fishes. Okay, these are all. What are these? These are biotic resources, and the second is abiotic resource. For example, rocks, minerals. These are originating from non-living sources. So on the basis of origin, you can classify resource into two, biotic and abiotic. The second classification is on the basis of exhaustibility. Whether the resource is going to get exhausted at one day or it is not going to get exhausted. So basis on exhaustibility. Okay, the resources are divided into two parts: renewable and non-renewable resources. The resources which can be renewed or reproduced, for example, solar energy, wind energy, water. These are all renewable resources. Whereas resources which are going to be exhausted one day, for example, minerals or fossil fuels, they are going to end one day because they cannot be renewed. It takes billions of years to create fossil fuels, so they can be exhausted. So these are called non-renewable resources. Resources are further divided on the basis of ownership, means who owns that resource, whether it's a private owner, okay, then it is called individual resources. Okay, individual resources. If if these resources are originating from a community, for example, I tell you, for individual resources, it may be plantation, a pasture land, okay, pond, water in a well. All these are individual resources because they are owned by a particular individual. Then there are community owned resources like a playground or the what do you call it? A ground, a cemetery you can call, or you can call grazing grounds in villages. These are all public parks. These are all community owned resources. Then you have national resources. In fact, technically speaking, all resources, even the individual resources, the house you own, the plot, it's an individual resource. The plot is an individual resource, but technically it belongs to the nation. You have to pay certain amount to the nation. Okay, so all these are technically national resources. Okay, railways, roads, canals, these are all national resources. So all the minerals, water resources, forest, wildlife which are inside the boundary, as well as the oceanic area up to 12 nautical miles. That's it. That 12 nautical miles means 1 nautical mile is equal to somewhere around 1.85 kilometers. That means 12 nautical miles means 22.2 kilometers from the mainland. It belongs to that particular nation. Okay. So from the coast, the territorial water, okay, that is a national resource. Then international resources. There are international institutions which regulate some resources, like the oceanic resource beyond 200 nautical miles, okay, of the exclusive economic zone belong to open ocean, and they doesn't belong to any particular country. That's an international resource. Then you can also classify resources on the basis of status of development. Okay, on the status of development, these resources are divided into potential resource, developed resources, and stock. Now, what are potential resources? Resources which are found in a particular region, but we don't have, until today we have not utilized it. Okay, for example, the western parts of India, like Rajasthan and Gujarat, there they have the enormous potential for wind energy, okay, or solar energy, but it has not been developed properly. So these are potential resources. Then there are developed resources, resources which are surveyed and their quality and quantity is known, and it has been determined so much of quality and quantity can be used, can be utilized. Okay, the development resources depends on technology and level of their feasibility. Then stock resources. What are stock resources? What is stock? Materials in the environment which have the potential, they have the potential to satisfy human needs, but we don't have the appropriate technology to use them. Okay, these are called stock resources. For example, water. Water is a compound of hydrogen and oxygen. These are two inflammable gases. But so they can be used as a source of energy. But we don't have the know-how to use them for this purpose. So these are called stock. Okay. Then there are reserves. Reserve is what? A subgroup of stock. Okay, that means resources which can be put into use with the help of existing know-how, but we are not using it. Resources are there. Reserve means resources are there. They are in the stock. We can use them with the know-how which we are having now, but we are not using them. For example, water flowing. We can generate hydroelectricity from it, but we are not using the whole of water to create hydroelectricity. So these resources are called as reserves. Okay. Now let us see the development of resources. Resources are vital for human survival. Without resource, human can't survive, or they can't maintain the quality of life. So to maintain quality of life or for survival, you need a resource. So people previously believed that resources are what? Gifts of nature. So they used it indiscriminately. So what happened because of that? There became a scarcity of resource. Indiscriminate use of resources will lead to scarcity of resource. They may cause major problems. Okay. See, depletion of resource, if they become scarce, depletion of resource became. So the main problems were depletion of resource. They were used anyway, indiscriminately they were used. Okay, for satisfying the greeds of a few individuals. Then accumulation of resources in few hands, which in turn divided the society into rich and poor. Some people, they were accessible to resources, they became rich. Those who didn't get the resources, they remained poor. Indiscriminate exploitation of resources has led to global ecological problems such as global warming, ozone layer depletion, environmental pollution, and land degradation. Okay. So, for fair and impartial distribution of resources is very necessary. It has become very essential for a fair and impartial distribution of resource. Okay. If the present trend of resource depletion by a few individuals continues, then the future of our planet will be in danger. Therefore, resource planning is very, very necessary for sustainable existence of all forms of life. If you want all forms of life to coexist, to live together, then it is necessary to plan the use of our resources. So, sustainable existence is a component of sustainable development. Sustainable economic development means development should take place without damaging the environment. Okay, what do you mean by sustainable economic development? Development has to take place naturally, but not at the expenses of the environment, and development in the present should not compromise with the needs of the future generation. For today is great, you are developing something, but it should not compromise with the need of the future generation. Remember that. So, in June 1992, for sustainable economic development, a conference was held in 1992 at Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, and more than 100 heads of different countries attended this conference. Okay, it was the first international Earth Summit. The summit was convened for addressing urgent problems of environmental protection and socio-economic development at the global level. The assembled leaders signed the Declaration on Global Climatic Change and Biological Diversity. All these 100 leaders of different countries, the heads of different countries, they signed a declaration on global climatic change and biological diversity. The Rio Convention endorsed the global forest principles and they adapted what is called as Agenda 21 for achieving sustainable development in the 21st century. This is very important, Agenda 21. It is the declaration. What is Agenda 21? It is the declaration signed by the 100 world leaders in the summit, which was the first International Earth Summit at Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. It aims to achieving global sustainable development. It is an agenda to fight environmental damage, poverty, disease through global cooperation on common interest, mutual needs, and shared responsibilities. One major objective of Agenda 21 is that every local government should draw its own local Agenda 21. Okay, so this is an important paragraph. Okay, what is the paragraph? Agenda 21. It is an agenda to fight environmental damage, poverty, disease through global cooperation. Cooperation will be of each other. All countries should cooperate on common interests, mutual needs, and shared responsibilities. This is the Agenda 21. Okay. Now let us come to, as I said, resource planning is necessary for sustainable existence. For sustainable existence, what is necessary? Resource planning. Now how to do resource planning? What do you mean by resource planning? Now let us come to it. Okay. Planning is accepted as a strategy for judicious use of resources. It has importance in a country like India, where there are enormous diversity in the availability of resources. If you see in India, in such a big country, there is a lot of diversity in the availability of resources too. There are regions which are rich in certain type of resources, but at the same time they are deficient in some other resources. There are some regions which can be considered self-sufficient in terms of availability of resources, and there are some regions which have acute shortage of some vital resources. For example, the states of Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh, they are rich in minerals and coal deposits. Arunachal Pradesh has abundance of water resource, but in Arunachal Pradesh you don't have infrastructure. The state of Rajasthan is very well endowed with solar and wind energy, but lacks in water resource. The cold desert of Ladakh is relatively isolated from the rest of the country. It has a very rich cultural heritage, but it is deficient in water, infrastructure and some vital minerals. This calls for a balanced resource planning at the national, state and a regional level. So what you find in India, in some places there are some places rich in some resources, whereas some resources are not available. So you have to plan that each region, each place gets both the vital resources, that if they have some deficiency in some resources, they should be made available to the people of that place. So accordingly we have to make a plan. Now, how do we do resource planning in India? Resource planning is a very complex process. And what are the steps? First thing what you have to do is identification and inventory of resource across the regions of the country. First you have to identify which types of resources are there, and you have to also know the quantity of resources available in a particular area. And for this, you involve surveying, mapping, and qualitative and quantitative estimations and measurement of resources. So the first thing is that you should identify which place you get a resource, okay, and how much of resources is there, what is the quality of that resource, you have to do a proper survey, how much quantity you can get from there. Second thing is that evolving a planning structure endowed with appropriate technology. See, you know now okay, that in this place there is a particular type of resource. Now you should have the technology, skill, and institutional setup to to use that particular material to make it as a resource, so that you can develop that resource. And third is matching the resource development plans with the overall national development plans. Means matching means the resource development plan means you want to have a particular resource from a particular thing. Then to develop that resource, you should develop it accordingly the need of the country. So how the country is going to develop, same way. So that particular resource had to be developed. So you have to match it with the country's development program. Okay. So India has made a lot of efforts for achieving the goals of resource planning right from the first 5-year plan launched after independence. The availability of resources is a necessary condition for the development of any region. See, if resources are not available, it's not easy for that area to develop. So, the first condition for the development of a region is that there should be availability of a resource. But just availability of resources is not important. Along with it, there should be technology. With the absence of technology, corresponding technology and institutions, you can't develop that particular region. The resources are there over there. For example, in Arunachal Pradesh, water resources are there, abundant water, but there is no infrastructure. So there should be infrastructure, there should be technology, there should be institutions to use those resources. Okay. Just I give you the example of Arunachal, there are many such regions where resources are available in plenty, but technology is not there. So these are economically backward regions. On the contrary, there are some regions which have a poor resource base, but they are economically developed. The history of colonization reveals that rich resources in colonies were the main attraction for the foreign invaders. Now, why did Britishers came to India? You must have learned in history why they came. Because India had lot of minerals, it had lot of spices, which so India was rich in minerals, it was rich in spices, the things which the Europeans needed in Europe. So that attracted many European countries to have their colonies in India. Okay. It was primarily the higher level of technological development of the colonizing countries that helped them to exploit resources of other regions and establish their supremacy over the colonies. Now, in India at that time, industrial revolution had not taken place. The European countries were industrial revolution had already taken place over there. So they had the know-how, they had the technology. Okay, since they had the technology, they could exploit the resources in other countries. And that's what they did in India. They exploited the resources of India because we didn't have the technology. They had the technology. That's why they came to India and they exploited the resources of other regions of other countries. Therefore, resources can contribute to development only when they are accompanied by appropriate technological development and institutional changes. India has experienced all this in different phases of colonization. Therefore, in India, development in general and resource development in particular does not only involve availability of resources but also the technology. So what you see in India, development of region is because of not only because of availability of resources but because of technology and the quality of human resource and the historical experiences of the people. Okay, along with technology, you need skilled laborers. Okay, so you need a good human resource and historical experience of the people. That leads to the economical development of that particular region. Now, how to conserve resource? Now, as I already said to you, resources are vital for development activities, but if you consume these resources irrationally and overutilize these resources, this may lead to socio-economic and environmental problems. Okay? To overcome these problems, resource conservation at various stages is very, very necessary. This had been the main concern of the leaders and thinkers in the past. Okay, if you don't use the resources in a judicial way, if you overexploit these resources, there will be a lot of socio-economic and environmental problems. Gandhiji was very apt in voicing his concern about resource conservation. He said, there is enough for everybody's need. What he said was that the nature has provided enough for everybody's need and not for anybody's greed. Do you understand the meaning of it? There is enough for everybody's need. Means what you need, you take it from the nature. Don't be a greedy person and over-expect things. There is not enough. Nature is not going to provide you for your greed. Nature is going to provide you for your need. That's what Gandhiji said. He placed the greedy and selfish individuals and exploitative nature of modern technology as the root cause for resource depletion at the global level. He said the greediness of human being and the exploitative nature of modern technology has led to the depletion of resources at the global level. He was against mass production and wanted to replace it with production by the masses. Okay, he said he was against mechanization. He was against mass production, producing on a mass scale. Gandhiji didn't like it. What he said, instead of producing on a mass scale, let the masses, let more and more people produce one thing. So what he meant to say was that if more and more people start producing a thing, more and more people will get employment. But when you do mass production, when you mechanize things, what is the thing? What is happening? Machine is coming into play, and people will lose their job. So there will be a lot of unemployment. So Gandhiji's saying was that don't go for mass production. Instead, let the mass produce it. Understood? At the international level, the Club of Rome advocated resource conservation for the first time in a systematic way in 1968. So, how resources can be conserved was systematic in a systematic way was advocated at the Club of Rome in 1968. After that, in 1974, Gandhian philosophy was once again presented by Schumacher in his book Small is Beautiful. The seminal contribution with respect to resource conservation at the global level was made by Brundtland Commission report in 1987. This report introduced the concept of sustainable development and advocated it as a means of resource conservation. Okay, so this report, the Brundtland Commission report in 1997, it introduced the concept of sustained development and said that if development is sustained development is taking place, then only you can conserve resources. This was subsequently published in a book entitled A Common Future. Another significant contribution was made at the first Earth Summit at Rio de Janeiro in 1992, the Agenda 21. Okay, you have to understand this Agenda 21 and you have to memorize it because a question usually comes on this. Okay, Agenda 21. Now, let us come to the different types of resources. The first type of resource is the land resource. Okay, we live on land and we perform many activities, economic activities that give us money on land, and we use this land in different ways. So land is a natural resource of very much importance. It supports natural vegetation, wildlife, human life, economic activities, transport, communication systems. However, land is a asset of a finite magnitude. It has a specific magnitude land. Therefore, it is important to use this available land for various purposes in a very careful, planned way. So you have to carefully plan the use of this land because it has it is a finite material, it has finite magnitude. Okay. India has land under a variety of relief features. There are different features. Okay, in India, because India is is a diverse country in all respects, in cultural respects, in geographical respects, both. Okay, so in India you have mountains, you have plateaus, you have plains, and you also have islands. About 43% of the land area is plain. Okay, 43% of the available land in India is plain, which provides facilities for agriculture and industry. Mountains account to 30% of the total surface area, and about 27% of the area of the country is the plateau region. 43% of the land area is plain, 30% is mountains you have in the 30% area, and in the 27% of the area there are plateaus. Now it possesses rich reserves. These plateaus possess rich reserves of minerals, fossil fuels and forests. Now let's come to utilization of land. See, land resources are used for the following purposes. How a land resource is used? Utilization of land resource. Let's come to it. First purpose is forest. Second, land not available for cultivation. Land which is a barren land or a wasteland which is not used for cultivation, or land put to non-agricultural uses. For example, for building roads, to build housing complex, to build factories. So, first land resource is used as a forest. Second, land not available for cultivation, which includes barren and wasteland, as well as land used for other purposes, like for building housing complexes, building roads, building bridges, building factories. Other uncultivated land, like permanent pastures and grazing lands. You need land for the cattle to graze, so there are permanent pastures and grazing lands. Land under miscellaneous tree crops not included in net zone area, and culturable wasteland. which is left uncultivated for more than 5 years. Okay. Third is the uncultivated land, which includes pastures, grazing lands, land under miscellaneous tree crops, then cultivable wasteland, which has been left uncultivated. It is cultivable, but it has remained uncultivated for more than 5 years. Then you have fallow lands, that is the land. The fallow land is divided into two. Current fallow, that is left without cultivation for one or less than one agricultural year. Okay, current fallow land is the land which has not been used for one or less than one agricultural year. Means in a particular year nothing has been grown over there, or in a particular season nothing has been grown. In the Kharif season it has been grown, but in Rabi it has not been grown anything over there. Okay. Then other than current fallow, what is left is uncultivated land for 1 to 5 years. Then you have net sown area. The area sown more than once in an agricultural year plus net sown area is known as the gross crop area. What is gross crop area? Area sown more than once in an agricultural year plus net sown area. With the total sown area plus area which is sown more than once. Okay, so add up. So in the same area you are sowing twice, so that area becomes double. Okay, so net sown area plus the area sown more than once. Now the next part is the land use pattern, how land is being used, and for that we will start in the next lecture and we will stop here. So again and once again I am telling you, please go to the textbook, read the textbook thoroughly, read it well. If you find any difficulties, please WhatsApp me, please call me, okay? And don't forget to get registered and have your question bank so you can study at home and you won't waste your time. Thank you.